G'day guys and gal. The end times is something we love to talk about on this channel, whether it be me trying to fix its terrible ending or just an overview of the entire thing. We've taken some nice looks at this naughty boy. The end times is a cluster cuck of little gems strewn throughout a big pile of excrement as the ultimate insults to Warhammer fans of fantasy. The mistreatment of a 40-year-old franchise resulted in utter resentment towards Age of Sigmar, which, if it was a standalone franchise or, if the end times had been good, likely would have been received really well by fans at launch. As such, through me being awesome and making small plot tweaks here and there, we will make the end times the way it should have been. Think about this like watching The Last Jedi. The movie had a lot of great potential but did some stupid stuff which ruined it. If they got rid of that social justice warrior lesbian and replaced her role entirely with Admiral Akbar, that could have done so much for the movie. Obviously, spoilers ahead if you've not read the books of the end times. I would suggest watching my video on the end times or doing some quick summary reading for context, however that is not essential. This video will cover an analysis of the Elven faction's end times lore and where it could have been improved. Originally I was going to make it one long ass video to cover the entire end times and its analysis and improvement, but that video is going to be over 2 hours long and I really cannot be stuffed. So yeah, thank you to the people that voted in the polls, but you've been vetoed by my lazy ass. So instead we'll break it down into sections, and no, I'm not doing this to make more money, all my videos are demonetized anyway. The rules for this is that I cannot change any major plot points or the ending. As such, Malekith still becomes the king of the elves, and Tyrion still goes full Cain mode, and other wacky things happen. Instead, I will change annoying details and weird motivations that, while still result in questionable shit happening, hopefully make it more justified. Let's get into it. The end times is a collection of a bunch of serious shit happening that resulted in the world exploding. We need to pick through the shit and find the good shit and expand that good shit to make the shit good. Keep up. Starting with the Elf storyline because they make up the bulk of the hentai that's made available for this channel. For only $1 per month on Patreon, you can get access to a large library of custom-made exclusive Warhammer hentai to support the channel. Terms and conditions apply. The Elven end times kicks off with Finubar, the current Phoenix King, realizing that Malekith was the true Phoenix King all along, and that all other Phoenix Kings besides Anarion were imposters and were all cursed by Anarion to fail. This is really stupid, as a number of Phoenix Kings did really well, and this makes Asuryan seem like a dumbass, as he technically favors the Dark Elves who insult him instead of the High Elves who revere him, despite all previous lore pointing to the opposite being true. To fix this bit of lore, during Finubar's meditation, he should speak with Asuryan. Asuryan explains that with the betrayal of Malekith and the gradual strengthening of chaos, his power has been waning, and whilst he rejected Malekith those thousands of years ago, a part of Asuryan still burned within him from his direct bloodline connecting him to Anarion. Asuryan would go on to say that although Malekith was twisted, he was not beyond saving, and the elves would need to unite under one leader to face the coming apocalypse. Who that leader would be is not yet known. Finubar would awaken from his meditation on the verge of death from his direct exposure to a desperate god. Teclis would rush to him on the urging of his god Lilith, as Finubar would explain the truth to Teclis before dying. Knowing he could not announce the truth openly as it would make him look like a dark elf homo, Teclis began hatching a plan with the aid of Lilith on how to not only unite the elven race, but also empower the other races of the world to face the coming chaos, such as creating demigods through the power of the vortex and allowing Nagash to be raised from the dead once again. In the actual canon story, which was published, Finubar realizes he is cursed and Teclis helps Malekith assassinate him. Finubar allows himself to be assassinated as a way to cure his curse through death. What the hell? Around this time, Tyrion and Elariel's daughter is kidnapped by Manfred with the help of Teclis, as she is a key ingredient in the resurrection of Nagash, something Arkan and Manfred have been working on for some time. I'm actually okay with this, as Teclis is busting his ass and doing very bad shit for the greater good. The only thing I'd like to see more of is how these things affected Teclis, like how does saving the world through sacrificing people like his niece take a toll on him? He literally handed his niece over to be murdered by undead monsters. That's pretty fucking rough. The plot point of Teclis doing this also feeds well into Tyrion's fall towards Cain. The battle for the souls of the Elven race is fought between the brothers Asuryan and Cain, so it's good to explore this plotline, which is actually what happens. For Malekith to embody Asuryan, however, there has to be some dramatic ass changes in who he is and his actions, well before Asuryan actually accepts him again. Like, this dude has been torturing and murdering and manipulating and raping his way across the world for the last couple thousand years. It's pretty bloody jarring when suddenly he's the good guy, cause God says so. As such, to improve Malekith's character arc, it would be important to show a slow but dramatic shift of personality and actions. A good opportunity of this would be during the massive chaos invasion of Canada that happens during the end times. The horrors of Khornite berserkers engaging Cainite berserkers in insane levels of death and violence should slowly break something within Malekith. Maybe he feels disgust at what he has brought his once proud people to. Remember, Malekith doesn't want to rule the Dark Elves, he always wanted to rule Ulthuan, so this could tie into the realization that his methods of cruelty have achieved nothing for 5,000 years, and on the brink of chaos wiping out his kingdom, he is humbled by his own failures. As his personal reflection continues, he feels the fire of Asuryan within him, a fire that has been smothered for thousands of years. Renewed with purpose, Malekith unites the Dark Elves and succeeds in repelling the Khornite invasions, defeating Skarbrand and Valkyr the Bloody, just as he did in canon. Malekith's attitude change is also felt through the Dark Elves, who despite still being messed up, turn away and shun their more chaotic aspects. Just like in canon, Malekith meets with his mother. However, differently to canon, he now explains his new perspective and how he feels nothing but pity for her and her emptiness. He then leaves her alone in her tower, knowing that chaos will eventually ruin Nagaroth. Malekith summons all of his Dark Elves to him and they travel to Ulthuan to fulfill his destiny. Instead of salting the lands, murdering all his slaves and destroying his cities, the reformed Malekith frees the slaves, giving them all the land in the city and allowing them to fight chaos. Whilst Malekith knows they will all still die, allowing them to live and fight will slow down chaos and inflict more casualties on them, and it would also be a great way to show his new character arc. This is for Nagaroth, or Nagaron by the way. This improvement for Malekith's character arc is very similar to what happens in canon. The only difference is that there is way more focus on why Malekith changed his attitude, and also some reflections on his new perspective, i.e. freeing the slaves in my version instead of killing them, which he did in canon. Around this time, Alariel goes to Athel Loren to help heal Ariel and the Oak of Ages, as both Ariel and the Oak are sick and dying. In canon, this is because Lilith is being a weird bitch and is trying to murder Isha for some stupid ass reason. They are both elven goddesses, so very odd. To make this less stupid, we can say that Ariel was wounded with a special weapon that Arkan used during the Bretonnian Civil War, which meant that she, and by extension Isha and the Oak, were also wounded. Alariel comes and realizes the only way to save Isha and the Oak is to take their power from Ariel and allow her to die. This occurs and Alariel becomes the new avatar of Isha and leader of the Wood Elves. See, tiny change which makes way more sense and has the exact same result. In canon, Eletharion and Araloth go to try and save Tyrion's daughter and prevent Nagash's resurrection, as remember Teclis being the sly dog never told anyone his plan. I would say how this played out is fine. The only thing I would change is Eletharion's death. Instead of fighting his way to Arkan only for Arkan to just Thanos snap him away, it should be way more epic. Eletharion approaches Arkan as Arkan fires magic at him. Eletharion is in pain but continues to push forward using the power of his will and anti-magic relics. He moves forward onwards even as his armor burns and his soul is torn to shreds. Arkan begins to panic as his Lord Nagash is only moments in resurrection, but one swing of Eletharion's sword could ruin it all. Eletharion catches up to Arkan and knocks him to the ground, his armor blackened and his skin burnt, kept alive only by his desire to save his people. As Eletharion raises his sword, Nagash explodes into life, the eruption of magic throwing Eletharion back and killing him. Like I said guys, small details that add a respectable end to a popular character doesn't change the plot at all. In canon, when Malekith arrives in Ulthuan at Caledor, he gets access to the Shrine of Asuryan by basically just being like, yo, I'm the true Phoenix King, and then Teclis and the Spirit of Caledor Dragon Tamer are like, yeah, he's right, this sadistic rapist is actually your king, so yeah, just gonna have to kneel and be his bitch. And most people were totally cool about that, which is really annoying. Like, they just accept their mortal, evil enemy. So let's fix that. In my version, Malekith arrives at Ulthuan with his fleet of Dark Elves. Many at this point have removed some of their more obscene ornaments to appeal more like twisted High Elves rather than a bunch of edgelords. Imric arrays his army of Caledor on the beaches in preparation for the coming fight. However, only Malekith unmounts his ship and approaches the Caledonian army unarmed. He kneels before them as Imric looks with confusion for a trap. Imric approaches Malekith and prepares to execute him. Malekith remains silent with his head down, ready to accept his fate, but putting his faith in Asuryan to continue his destiny. Suddenly, Teclis teleports in and tells Imric to stop. He explains that with the coming apocalypse, they need the strength of Malekith and his armies to stop chaos. Imric replies with disgust that he will never fight with the traitor Malekith, and Asuryan would never be so foolish as to choose him, especially when he burnt him last time he tried to be chosen. Teclis then says, let's bring him to the fire of Asuryan. It will either prove he is worthy of Asuryan or it will burn him to death. Either way is a win. Imric agrees to this, however the Dark Elf army remain disarmed within Caledor for the time being. No blood is spilled, which is a pretty big contrast to canon, where the Dark Elves team up with Caledor to massacre High Elven warriors on their way to the Shrine of Asuryan, which is insane. To think a noble prince of Ulthuan, who they're trying to paint as a good guy, Imric, would kill his own kinsman for the Dark Elves. Teclis teleports them to the shrine and they are allowed entry as the Phoenix Guard they easily interpret Asuryan's will and know he wants Malekith to enter. Malekith enters the flame of Asuryan once again, and the fires burn him, but this time it's different. It melts away his foul armor and heals his burns. The fire enters him and he then is extinguished, symbolizing the merging of Asuryan's power with Malekith, functionally killing Asuryan as his destiny has reached its end. The fires of Asuryan burn away the last of Malekith's contempt, corruption and hatred, and he emerges from the flame. He appears as he did all those thousands of years ago before he killed Belshazzar. With the power of Asuryan, Malekith is now a demigod. Due to Imric and various other High Elf princes witnessing this, they pledge fealty to Malekith, as they have seen he is the chosen of Asuryan. This completes Malekith's main character arc, as he transitions from an arrogant, entitled, power-hungry sadist to be humbled and sad, yet noble and strong. Kinda similar to Kylo Ren's arc from the new trilogy, but less rushed and without positive parental figures. Alariel returns to Ulthuan after healing Athel, Loren and eating Isha to discover the new development. She meets with Malekith, and while still disgusted with him and all the horrors he has committed, some directly against her, she still recognizes her duty as Everqueen, and reluctantly enters into a symbolic loveless marriage with Malekith, as he is now the Phoenix King. This is what happens in canon, and I'm actually okay with this remaining canon, but it came across really poorly, and quite disturbing due to Malekith's complete lack of redemption arc, as well as the fact that he had to fight and kill High Elves to make his way to the Shrine of Asuryan. Also in canon, the fires did not heal him, so Malekith continued to look like this super evil Darth Vader looking motherfucker. As in canon, Tyrion would encounter Talarius Dreadbringer and kill him, however the death would be from both fighters fighting for their life, with Tyrion edging out the victory and Cain then transferring his focus upon him, instead of Cain telling Talarius to let Tyrion kill him. Makes it more epic, considering how powerful Talarius is in lore. It's a bit of a cop-out to let Tyrion basically just execute him. Now, whilst Asuryan had been working with Malekith to bring him to the light, Cain has been working on Tyrion to bring him to the dark. Tyrion had resisted Cain's influence for many years. However, Tyrion heard the news of Malekith's confusing arrival in Ulthuan, and he began rallying the High Elf armies in preparation to fight off the Dark Elves. Teclis arrives and basically tells Tyrion that Malekith is the chosen of Asuryan, and that Alariel has assumed her duty as his wife. He says half of Ulthuan has sworn fealty to Malekith, and it is Tyrion's duty to do the same. Tyrion is shocked at this revelation and feels betrayed by his brother, his lover and his people, and his god. On top of this, Teclis either accidentally or deliberately reveals that he had a hand in Tyrion's daughter's death, and this would all come together to be a fantastic way for Tyrion to fall to Cain, and it would have really great motivations for him to draw the Widowmaker. This is somewhat how it happened in canon, however having it clearly spelt out to Tyrion by his brother Teclis would make it really clear as to why Tyrion goes from Defender of Ulthuan to batshit crazy Avatar of Cain. Tyrion draws the sword of Cain and half of the War Elves declare war on the other half. The canon story of the skirmishes leading up to the final battle were fine, as was the character motivations for choosing their side. The only thing I would change here is Malice. In canon, Zarkan gets too powerful and rips Malice and Spite to shreds, and then Tyrion puts Zarkan down. Massive cop-out for our boy Malice. Instead, Malice and Zarken should come to an eventual understanding, as Zarken decides that he enjoys the world and the pleasures it has to offer and doesn't want chaos to destroy it. This also ties into with Slaanesh. Slaanesh is trying to sabotage the Chaos God's attempts to destroy the world, as Slaanesh enjoys it as a playground. Zarken does get more powerful, but in my version, instead of killing Malice, he empowers Malice to become a supremely powerful warrior and challenges Tyrion to combat over the right to lead the Cainite forces. The Sword of Cain locks with the Warp Sword of Cain as the two demigods battle. Eventually Tyrion wins the duel and wounds Malice, however he respects his strength and spares him. This does strip Malice of his sword, however, and allows Tyrion to wield both the Sword of Cain as well as the Warp Sword of Cain, which is fucking awesome. That way Malice can persist and come to a better ending, rather than just getting randomly killed off. Again, this also does not alter the main plotline in the slightest, while still showing respect for a fan favourite character. For Tyrion as a character, it was shit by Games Workshop not to show the conflict within him, as his noble side was being slowly consumed by the bloodlust of Cain. It just seemed weird that he took up the sword and became an instant crazy asshole. When Anarion drew the Sword of Cain, he was able to control himself and even overcome the bloodlust, so it seemed like a cop-out that Tyrion is such a weak bitch in comparison. In saying this, however, I think that the duel to the death between Orion and Tyrion should still play out as it did, as it was a good way to display Cain Tyrion's power, and perhaps could have filled Tyrion with regret that would help him later fight off Cain's influence. In the final battle, it should play out as usual, with Malekith empowered by Asuryan being beaten by the Cain-empowered Tyrion. However, this time there should be no bullshit cheese by Elitha Nar just sniping Tyrion. Tyrion instead should hesitate before slaying Malekith, as Cain screamed at his soul to finish him off, whilst his brother and Alariel, his lover, plead that he doesn't. Before Tyrion can decide what to do, the Khornite invasion that attacked Nagaroth should arrive at the battlefield, as well as a large amount of warriors and demons from the other Chaos Gods, in an attempt to take the Elven race off the playing field. Cain Tyrion would fight alongside his brother and Malekith and all the other elves in holding off the demons as they begin evacuating Ulthuan via the world routes that were canon. And Teclis would begin unbinding the vortex in order to release the winds of magic and bind them to various heroes that could permanently defeat chaos. Tyrion would repeat the sacrifice of Anarion, killing countless demons and suffering a mortal wound. During this battle, Malice should go full demon mode and kill the other demons until he himself is killed by a powerful demon or chaos character. The elves evacuate most of their people, characters and warriors, and then Teclis unbinds the vortex, sinking Ulthuan and killing all the invading demons and chaos warriors. Teclis evacuates Tyrion, who dies in Teclis' arms. With Tyrion's death, Cain dies as well. While the result of this version is exactly the same as canon, I way prefer this because Tyrion gets to follow Anarion's footsteps. That was the point, instead of being a weak-willed bitch who just becomes the bad guy. Sure, he's an asshole that creates an elven civil war and kills Orion, just like how the influence of Anarion created the Dark Elves. However, this doesn't mean he can't go out like Anarion. This also makes his resurrection way less awkward, as his final act was sacrificing himself to save his people, instead of trying to destroy his people. This also gives us the final showdown between Malekith and Tyrion that we've all been craving still. Definitely the battle I would have wanted to see, and we could even get dialogue between Asuryan and Cain speaking through Malekith and Tyrion, which would be really cool. The vortex is unbound and the incarnates are infused with their superpowers. The entire Elven host is now in Athel Loren. I have no issue with the next few parts of the Elven End Times plot, other than Malekith being less of a dick. The storyline of Araloth going into the realms of chaos to team up with Kaldor Drago and rescue Shalea was a bit of fun, so it can stay. However, the plotline goes nowhere, as when they save her, Lilith just sends Araloth off to her pocket world she has created, hoping that the new world will be the next Warhammer Fantasy world. Now this plotline is fine, but if it didn't exist at all, then whoop-de-doo, as it seems like it ends in nothing, as the new world Lilith creates is seemingly destroyed anyways, and she loses her god status and becomes super depressed at being such a bitch all these years. Teclis should now be a bit more of a wreck from the weight of all his actions and the schemes, as well as the death of his brother. He steals the flame of Ulrich, dooming Middenheim, as well as using the window of light to bring his brother back to life. An action that makes him even more depressed, especially since the revived Tyrion doesn't trust anyone. However, he is strong as fuck, so that's alright. I wouldn't change this part either. Something I would change, however, is Malekith getting randomly saved by Grombrindal, and then Grombrindal vanishing straight away. Yeah, good. There should be a good forgiveness scene from the White Dwarf to Malekith because of the War of the Beard that Malekith caused, but Malekith should earn it. A good way to do this would be for one of the nearby Dawi holds to get attacked by Skaven, and Malekith musters up a force to save it. When questioned why he would risk elven lives to save the dwarves, he would reply, "Because we keep our oaths." During the battle, Malekith would get ambushed by a Vermin Lord, and only just be saved in time by Grombrindal. This would give the White Dwarf a good reason to forgive Malekith, and would continue to enrich Malekith's redemption arc. Because honestly, at the moment, it's just Malekith is like, literally like, imagine him just like raping someone, and then he gets a phone call from Assyrian being like, alright, you're the main protagonist now, and you're God, and everyone's forgiven you for everything. He'd be like, oh sweet, like, so fucking stupid, you know? Eventually, Chaos begins their ritual at Middenheim to nuke the world, and the forces of Order teleport to Middenheim in order to try to stop them. I would keep this the same, however, instead of this happening because Teclis shanks Lilith to death, I would just let Lilith teleport everyone. However, doing so, and the effort of teleporting thousands of people, should kill her. It just seems weird that Teclis would stab her to teleport people. No, I won't cover what should happen at the end of the end times because I've already done that. I'm happy with how my ending went in my books, and everyone seems to like it as well, so make sure you check it out. This video is already pretty long and only covers how the end times should have gone for the elves. As I said, once all the parts are out where I analyse what should have happened to all the races, I will then release an updated end times video, which basically just goes through what should have happened in one complete story. No analysis, if that makes sense. This is going to be a pretty big project for me, so I'm keen to see if you guys like it or not. If you have anything you would think should have been changed about the Elven end times lore that I didn't cover, or if you want to improve upon my edits, then let me know in the comments below. If you want to support the channel further, then Patreon is the place to go. As we said, there is a boatload of hentai floating around in there. If you want to chat shit, then come join me in the Discord. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.